Why is this happening now? And how did we get here? Well, the answers matter both for an understanding of what is an enduring and complex conflict and also for what comes next. The first and most consequential cause is the most obvious, the terrorist violence by Hamas. Now, there's no major factual debate about this. Hamas has operated as a terrorist group targeting civilians, and specifically Israeli civilians, for decades. The United States designated it a foreign terrorist organization over 25 years ago in October 1997. And so to start with basic context on something that we're all probably going to be living with here for a while as this war goes on, that record of Hamas's terrorism runs longer than terror groups that may sound more familiar to some Americans. Hamas's record longer than, say, when Al-Qaeda or ISIS were first designated terrorist organizations by the United States. Hamas has staged ambushes across many decades, suicide bombings, attacks on civilians riding buses, deadly attacks where the group publicly claims responsibility. Again, no factual debate about what they do and who they target. They will publicly proclaim after the fact that they have attacked buses with civilians and children on it. The group has kidnapped and killed Israeli civilians as well as soldiers.
That happened on October 7th, 2023.
Wars and rumors of wars. Soon after the horrific events perpetrated by Hamas in Israel on the 7th of October, a comparison was made with the unprecedented attacks on New York and Washington in September 2001. This is our 9A delivers a message coming out of Israel's diplomatic circles in the immediate aftermath of the recent larger-scale kidnappings and killings by the group. These events have traumatized a nation. The magnitude of the collective trauma can certainly be compared to what happened to the people in the U.S. Even though it was 22 years ago, the trauma is still felt in the U.S. and quite similarly. The trauma of today will be felt in Israel for many years to come. There is a national history before and a period after the 7th of October 2023 for the Israelis.
The new wave of violence, then the apparent capture of an Israeli military officer.
Militants used one of those tunnels to launch a surprise attack, killing 2 Israeli soldiers.
A terrorist came out with a suicide belt, blew himself up, killed 2.
It is a very long record that is very well known in the region. So if you follow this conflict or this region, you know about it. If you're paying more attention now that we have this war crisis, well, this has been known. The timing was the surprise, but the measures are not. That is the background for some of the new reporting we're seeing today. Take the American publication The Atlantic, reporting on the new Hamas mass kidnappings, rapes, and torture by those terrorists against Israeli civilians. Human rights groups already collecting the evidence from this weekend for war crimes investigations. That same article reporting on Hamas kidnapping children, young women, and the elderly with apparent...
You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come.
On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, shortly before 8 a.m., Japan launched a surprise attack on the United States of America by bombing the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The base was attacked by 350 Imperial Japanese aircrafts. Though the raid only lasted 75 minutes, the Japanese destroyed or damaged nearly 20 American naval vessels, including 8 battleships and more than 340 airplanes. Over 2,400 Americans died in the attack, and many more were wounded. While the attack on Pearl Harbor was a surprise, tensions between the U.S. and Japan had deteriorated over the decade, in particular with regards to Japan's expansion into China. The plan for attacking Pearl Harbor was to destroy the U.S.'s Pacific Fleet, a move which would give the Japanese time to carry out its plans to keep control of the Pacific without U.S. interference. The shock of the attack without declaration of war enraged the American public and rallied the nation to get behind a war many hoped to avoid. At the beginning of his speech to Congress requesting a declaration of war, President Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered this now famous line.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
On December 8, 1941, one day after the attack, the United States Congress declared war on Japan, officially entering World War II.
Wake up.
Be awake to the truth.
They might fight dirty, using weapons of mass destruction.
There are ties between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda.
Anthrax, smallpox,
dirty bomb,
Iraq Al-Qaeda connection.
Both of them want to see Americans dead.
War now seems all but inevitable.
Short of a bullet to the back of his head or he leaves the country, war is inexorable.
War is inevitable, and it is approaching inexorably.
Is war with Iraq inevitable right now?
I think it's 95% inevitable.
You, at this point, right now, tonight, don't see any other option but war. Do you? I'm asking you, Ambassador.
I don't think there's a viable option for the administration at this point. We're way too far out front in this.
Send us over there, guys. Let's get on with it. Let's get it over with.
Because it may seem while the masses are being distracted, the higher-ups are preparing for something big.
Make no mistake, today's vote's going to be long remembered, and history's going to judge harshly those who turn their back on freedom's cause. We can't let Putin win.
The Senate planning to vote on a multi-billion-dollar aid package for Ukraine. President Biden proposed the aid package, saying it appeals to both political parties. The president warns not passing the aid package would put Russia's president at an advantage in the war with Ukraine. But the proposal could be in jeopardy with Republicans connecting aid to Ukraine and Israel, and Democrats refusing to lump the aid into one bill.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
General Motors, Ford, General Electric, DuPont, and other U.S. companies intimately involved with the development of Nazi Germany were controlled by the Wall Street banks, such as the J.P. Morgan firm, the Rockefeller Chase Bank, and to a lesser extent, the Warburg Manhattan Bank. Standard Oil provided a steady supply of oil throughout the war. The oil was shipped to Spain, then piped through Nazi-controlled France into Germany. General Motors and Ford provided 90% of Nazi armored trucks. IBM produced the Hollerith machines that helped SS officers manage the roundup of dissidents for concentration camps. The Americans knew about Pearl Harbor in advance. The Illuminati goaded Japan into attacking America. Aware that Japan received 80% of its oil imports from the U.S., in 1941, Roosevelt imposed an oil embargo on the country. This was followed by a steel embargo, forcing the Japanese into a war footing with the U.S. Evidence abounds that the Americans knew the attack was coming but did nothing to stop it. They removed the main vessels from Pearl Harbor just prior to the attack, suggesting that they wanted a calamity but didn't want to lose their best ships. Most damningly, when the first bombs landed early on Sunday morning, a professional movie-Tony cameraman was lying in wait to record the attacks. This is why the Americans had color footage of the event. This footage proved invaluable as a propaganda tool in American cinemas. A public previously hostile to war would soon cheer atomic bombs vaporizing Japanese cities. The war with Japan fulfilled a few Illuminati goals. The question still holds, is it coming to America?
Awake thou that sleepeth.
Firebombing campaigns, sacrifices to Satan. During World War II, there were many firebombing campaigns on densely populated cities. The most famous is Dresden, in which Churchill murdered 100,000 German civilians. Victims pictured left. The same bombers could have been ordered to bomb the factories of IG Farben, or the German rail network, or the German supply lines to the Eastern Front, or German shipping and ports. But no. The incineration of thousands of women and children took precedence. The Americans committed similar sacrifices in Japan. We all know about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but it is rarely mentioned that U.S. forces savagely firebombed 67 Japanese cities. It is estimated that 500,000 civilians were burned to death in the raids. These needless attacks were the Illuminati shock doctrine in full effect. The intention, was to demoralize the world populace and make it accept the authority of the UN. Considering that the Illuminati are Satanists, these raids also have a deeper meaning. The sacrifice of children by fire is the most potent satanic ritual. The worship of Moloch is the best-known example of this practice. The immolation of these children, along with their mothers, was a deliberate and systematic series of occult sacrifices. Conclusion. The Illuminati rely on deception to commit their crimes. To this end they lie, trick and deceive, but they also count on our naivety and ignorance. Under even minimal critical analysis, the official story of World War II collapses like a house of cards.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird, for that no man deceive you by any means. For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
States have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
Are you guys aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens? We're moving to D.C. today.
You need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death.
Every time I survived the war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car! Move, move, move!
You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, 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 go!
God bless America.
Do they tell you why they're building bunkers when they build them?
Most of the time they do. It's just like everyone else. They look at what's going on in the world around them, and just because you have billions of dollars doesn't mean you're not connected to what's really happening. And a lot of times maybe you're more connected, but you know, they're just looking for safety and security for their family and their loved ones.
Are they worried about, like that woman was saying, people storming the castle?
I mean, I guess in a sense, yes. You know, because I mean, look at the looting that was just on a few minutes ago. You know, the smash and grabs. You know, that's going to be a reality when there's no food in the grocery stores. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to other people's cupboards. I think it's like an insurance policy. I believe that some of them know that someday they'll need it, and some of them are buying it.
After the horrific events perpetrated by Hamas in Israel on the 7th of October, a comparison was made with the unprecedented attacks on New York and Washington in
Typically,
September
theaters,
2001.
for personal
This is our
entertainment,
9 Akeley. There is a
libraries are really
message coming
common.
out of Israel's diplomatic circles in the
billionaire
immediate
bunkers, you don't see
aftermath of the
much,
recent larger-scale
self-sustaining,
kidnappings and killings by
things
the
like,
group.
no
These
hydroponics
events
or
have
gardens, things
traumatized
like
a
that.
nation. The
It's more
magnitude
about
of the
storage
collective
and,
trauma can certainly be compared to what
and
happened to the
comfort,
people in the
bowling
U.S.
alley,
Even though
swimming
it was
pools,
22 years ago,
saunas,
the trauma is still felt in the
shooting
U.S.
ranges.
and quite
Babylon the Great
the
is
trauma
fallen,
of today
is fallen,
felt in
and
Israel
has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit,
after,
and a cage for every unclean and hated bird.